IDMR top brass responds to open letter. Anonymous December 16, 2023. The open letter to IDMR, published widely on October 15, 2023, continues to have an impact, with many current and former members of the organization having read, shared, and discussed its contents. As expected, IDMR has failed to take any recommended actions to embrace accountability for their decades of failures, false predictions, and abuse. Our letter, written and sent in the spirit of love for the purpose of acknowledgement and healing, was blasted by trustees and laity alike with defensive gaslighting, vicious attacks, accusations, and insults. We were told that we should just leave. Certainly, having us go away to avoid accountability and acknowledgement would be convenient for IDMR's leaders, but here we are, standing firm in our faith that truth will win the day. This update is for all those that wrote in and expressed their support for the letter and wish to be kept apprised of IDMR's response. It's noteworthy that we received letters from across the United States from individuals, some who said they'd been associated with IDMR for over 50 years, and many others who were raised in the school. We were told that some cried when they read it. Many said that it was very therapeutic and that it was long overdue. Our Los Angeles-based crew has worked to curate a list of responses gathered from recent classes. What follows is a summary of the public statements made about the letter from international board members at various Los Angeles and Banning branch classes. Note, these are the school's officers, so safe to assume this is the school's official position and response. It's probably the best we'll get for now. Aaron Bryant, International Dean and Vice President, called the letter evil and that the authors, in their anonymity, failed to demonstrate the same courage that H.C. Kinley had when mailing the textbook to the Pope of Rome and providing a return address, inviting feedback. Bryant falsely stated that the open letter provided no address by which a return correspondence could be provided, stating that if he wanted to respond, he couldn't. The need to remove anonymity is clear desperation on the part of Bryant to have an individuals to attack rather than address the substance of the letter. His silence and lack of effort to address any of the letter's key points should be ample evidence to his worshippers of two things. 1. He lacks the ability to provide substantive defense for the school. 2. He unequivocally proved that he is not God, as his followers openly preach from the floor week after week, because an omniscient creator would surely know who sent the letter and how to reach them. This impotence should raise clear questions in the minds of institutors regarding his revered God status. Also, in a recent board meeting, Aaron Bryant made statements that provide more credence to the substance of our letter. While taking the international board to task, he stated that many of them don't know the school and what's going on across the country. He offered two examples, a recent incident of a dean sexually molesting a 14-year-old boy and another school where a married dean was sleeping with multiple female members. Bryant goes on to say that he receives calls from all over the country, but he doesn't share them with the rest of the leaders, because, he says, if they knew how bad it was, it would destroy them. Ominous. Seems like the international dean shares our position that the school has negative consequences for its members. Maybe it's time for an IDMR Me Too movement. Keith Gilkey, international president and trustee, tells us that, yes, Dr. Kinley did say things that didn't come to pass, but he did so intentionally in order to send us the wrong way. His assertion that Kinley was totally cool with deceiving his own people is pretty extraordinary, given that the Bible says that it's impossible for Yahweh to lie, and that the founder himself said he would never lie to us. To each his own, but you have to ask yourself if this is the kind of God you want to serve, i.e., one who is untrustworthy, double-minded, malicious, and deceitful towards his own people. Patricia Nelson, international superintendent and trustee, provided the class encouragement not to be troubled by spirit or by letter, quoting from the Bible, but couldn't help but take aim at the current members. Reference in the letter. She says, we have security in Banning, but they aren't to keep you here. If you don't want to be here, then leave. Ain't nobody keeping you here. Ellsworth Wellmaker, international trustee, was indignant at the open letter's request for an apology. He repeated falsehoods that Dr. Kinley never failed predictions, he did, and then stated that it was them, IDMR, who are owed an apology from us, not the other way around. Wellmaker states that the school has done incredible things for the community, noting that they have removed many criminals from the streets and lowered crime rates in all the cities where they have branches. He even goes as far as stating that there is a direct correlation to crime rate decreases in cities proportional to the number of people in a branch school relative to the population of that city. Pretty extraordinary demographic science at play here. To work, we have to assume that each and every member of IDMR would actively be committing felonies were they not at class. Wellmaker also took issue with the possibility that anyone was harmed by IDMR's teachings and offered a personal testimony to make his counterpoint. You see, just the other day he had the privilege of going to lunch with a former NBA player, a dentist, and a doctor, none of whom would have anything to do with him if he didn't go to class. So here is proof positive that IDMR never harmed anyone. Sure, you may have passed on having children because the world was ending, but it's all good because Ellsworth at least gets to have lunch with successful people. He then yells to those who wrote the letter, we ain't backing down, and calls us the devil and that the letter was just a bunch of negativity to highlight Dr. Kinley. Marlon Farley, MD and international trustee, told the class that because the letter was sent anonymously, it doesn't mean anything. and because they didn't sign their names, they didn't mean any of it. Disputing the assertion that IDMR had negative consequences for its members, Farley uses himself as an example, rattling off a long list of awards and distinctions he's received as a black medical doctor. Ironically, he shares that despite having been raised in the camp, he didn't actually come to class until he was 28 years old, after he had gone to school and received his medical degree. Essentially, admitting that his path to success in life was avoiding IDMR and its teachings until he had first established himself professionally. While less significant, below are some statements made by various speakers, laity, regarding the letter from the floor in recent weeks. If they were truly Dr. Kinley's sons, they wouldn't have experienced any negative consequences from believing the school's predictions. The letter was written by modern Sadducees, i.e., Sadducee. Some pointed out the similar timing of the letter release date and the Hamas attack on Israel. The letter was called a missile that was directed at them to test their faith in H.C. Kinley. Author's response. In response to the claims that anonymity indicates some kind of cowardice or reduced commitment to the substance of the letter, we offer this is not the response of IDMR evidence of why we would choose this approach. The IDMR has a long history of attacking those who do not fall in line. They are called demons, unbelievers, threatened with eternal damnation, and ostracized. We refuse to allow the school to subject any individuals to more mistreatment. We demand they look at the substance of our concerns rather than make it about people. Sadly, as we've seen in recent weeks, they have no defense. They have made no attempt to dispute any of our conclusions. They openly acknowledge false predictions, Dr. Gilkey, and try to justify them. Or they try to pretend they didn't happen at all and sweep them under the carpet. The time is now to face the music and acknowledge that the school and its leaders failed to accurately predict the end of the world numerous times. P.S.
Signs you might be in a cult. You put crowns on your leaders and call them God. Pat Nelson, Aaron Antonia Bryant, Robert N. Marr.